The scream tore through the trees like a blade, raw, wet, and wrong. It wasn't human. Or maybe it used to be. The forest, dark and breathing, swallowed the sound as quickly as it came. A figure ran. A girl, mud-streaked, barefoot, stumbled through the underbrush, clutching a bundle soaked in red. Her eyes were wide, wild, unblinking. Behind her, the cabin loomed. Small, rotten, dimly damned pie. Still. Inside, the old man stood beside a crude wooden table, his fingers slick with something thick and black. On the table, a jar. In the jar, a smile. Perfect. Preserved. A child's smile. He turned slowly, as if hearing her footsteps even before they touched the ground. She screamed too early, the old man muttered. Then he smiled, a slit of gray teeth, sharp as splinters. Thunder cracked. Shadows moved. And the forest held its breath. The girl didn't know how long she had been running. The forest felt endless, shifting with every step. Trees bent where they shouldn't. Paths vanished behind her. Her lungs burned, but she didn't dare stop. She cradled the bundle tighter, a blanket now soaked completely through. She had taken it. She hadn't meant to, but she couldn't leave it there. Not with him. Ahead, the forest opened slightly, revealing a narrow brook glinting in the moonlight. She collapsed beside it, her reflection fractured in the rippling water. Her lips trembled. I'm sorry, she whispered to the bundle. It didn't answer. A distant creak from the woods made her flinch. She turned. Behind her, nothing. Or maybe something that didn't want to be seen. She held her breath. The brook kept flowing, but the woods were too quiet now. Back in the cabin, the old man moved without noise. He didn't walk, he glided, his feet barely lifting from the blood-blackened floor. His hand hovered over a small wooden drawer beneath the table. With a hiss, it opened. Inside, teeth. Dozens. Tiny. All aligned in rows. He selected one. Polished. Baby molar. For the next, he said softly. A dull humming began. Not from the cabin, but from beneath it. The planks rattled. Dust fell from the beams above. The jar on the table shimmered. He turned toward the door. She's going to return, he whispered. They always return. Then, from outside, a wet sound, like something crawling over bark. The old man smiled again. He never stopped smiling. She heard it again. Closer. A dragging noise. Like wet rope sliding across stone. Her legs refused to move, even as her breath came faster. Clutching the bundle, she backed away from the brook, stumbling into roots and moss. Then, a whisper. Not from the woods, but from the bundle itself. Her arms went stiff. She stared down. The cloth bulged. Moved. She opened it. Just a little. Enough to see pale flesh. A smile. The same one from the jaw. Only now it was sewn into the face of something wrong. She screamed, but no sound came. From the trees, the whisper again. She screamed too early. The forest swallowed her scream. Not a bird stirred. No leaves rustled. The silence was unnatural, alive. The bundle fell from her arms. It wriggled, twitched, then stilled. Her breath fogged the air. She turned and ran, again. But the forest was wrong now. The trees leaned closer. The path stretched unnaturally long. Her feet bled. Her vision blurred. Behind her the bundle began to move. Unfolding. Unraveling. Legs. Too many. A spine backward. And the stitched smile, wide and wet. It began to crawl toward the cabin. Toward him. Toward home. Her name was Elara. No one in the village knew what became of her mother. Some said she walked into the lake and never came out. Others said she left something behind too monstrous to love. Elara never asked. She was 7 when the whispers began, voices only she could hear. They lived in the trees, beneath the floorboards, inside the walls. The elders said she was cursed. Her father said nothing. He drank and prayed and locked her in the cellar at night. Elara learned to listen to the whispers, not the screams. They told her things, secret things, where her father kept his rage, where the animals went to die, and where the old man in the forest buried the jars. When she turned 12, the whispers gave her a name and a task. That's when she began watching the cabin. That's when she stole the first bundle. That's when everything changed. Elara had a journal, one she never wrote in. The pages filled themselves. Words appeared overnight, trembling, slanted, as if carved by a shaking hand. They weren't hers. She never dared read them aloud. But she remembered the one that started it all. The smile is not his. That morning, she found a tooth beneath her pillow, though she hadn't lost one. A whisper told her to follow the crow. And so she did, into the woods, past the lake, beyond the boundary no child crossed. There, she saw the cabin for the first time. The air grew cold. The trees leaned away, and the crow landed on the roof and screamed. Elara didn't run. She watched. Hours passed, and then the door creaked open. The old man stepped out, holding a jar. He smiled, but it wasn't his. He shouldn't have seen her, but he did. His eyes locked onto hers across the field of dead leaves, unblinking. She froze. Something shifted in her chest, like ice cracking. He raised the jar, tilting it as if in offering. The smile inside twitched. Elara stepped back. The crow shrieked again and took flight. When she blinked, he was gone. The cabin stood still, empty. But she knew better. She ran. Not home, ever home, but to the lake. She threw the journal into the water. It floated, then sank, slowly, as if pulled. The whispers followed her all the way back. That night her dreams were not her own. They belonged to the old man, and he dreamed in screams. Elara's father found her the next morning, curled in the field behind their house, barefoot, lips stained black. He shook her, slapped her. She didn't wake. Not then. Not for hours. When she finally stirred, she whispered, "I saw him." He didn't ask who. He knew. Everyone in the village knew. No one spoke of him, but they all carried stories. A child went missing every winter. A hunter returned blind. A woman walked into the trees and came back wrong. They called it the forest's price. But no one knew the cost until Elara. That night, the village priest nailed charms around her window. Her father slept with a knife. But Elara wasn't afraid. She was waiting. The whispers told her he would come. And he did. She heard his steps before anyone else. Not footsteps, wood creaking like floorboards that shouldn't exist outside. The whisper said, "He's here." Her breath slowed. Her heart didn't race. It stopped. Time unraveled. The door didn't open. It dissolved. Fog poured into her room like smoke. In it, shapes, fingers, teeth. Then came his voice. Not loud, not harsh. Gentle. "Hunteau, you took something that was mine." Her father jolted awake and charged, knife raised. The old man didn't move. He only looked. Her father dropped to his knees, sobbing, knife clattering beside him. Elara stood up. Slowly. Calmly. She stepped forward. The fog welcomed her. The old man turned, and together they vanished. The room fell silent. Her father never spoke again. Elara woke up in the old man's cabin, but it wasn't how she remembered. The walls were clean. The air smelled of lavender and ash. The table was polished. No jars. No blood. The old man stood by the window staring out. "You're safe now," he said. His voice was warm. Too warm. "You took me," she said. He smiled gently. "I saved you." Elara sat up slowly, muscles aching. Her hands were clean, her feet bandaged. The bundle was gone. "Where is it?" she asked. The old man didn't answer. He walked to a bookshelf and pulled a leather-bound book. "It's not ready yet," he said. Then he opened the book. Inside were moving images, shifting, living moments of people she knew. Her father, the priest, herself, crying, running, screaming. "These are the truths no one speaks," he whispered. "I collect them." The old man turned the page. Elara saw a scene. Her father sobbing in the cellar, praying to something with too many arms. "He made a deal," the old man said. "Not for you, for silence." Elara's throat clenched. "You're lying, am I?" He flipped the page again. Her village burned. People screaming. Trees laughing. "Not yet," he said. "But soon." Elara tore the book from his hands and threw it into the fire. It didn't burn. It floated above the flames, pages turning on their own. "You can't change what's written," he said. "But you can write the end." Elara backed away, eyes wild. The whispers returned, louder now. Desperate. But not his. Hers. Not from within. "Write it," they said. "End it." That night, Elara found the attic. It wasn't there before. The ladder lowered on its own. She climbed slowly, whispering to herself to stay awake. Inside, dozens of jars lined the walls, each one holding something different. A laugh. A breath. A tear. Souls, perhaps. At the center, one jar glowed brighter than the rest. It pulsed. She stepped closer. Her own face stared back at her, mouth sewn shut. A mirror, or a warning. Behind her, the floor creaked. "You shouldn't be here," came a voice, soft, unfamiliar. A boy, maybe 15, stepped into the attic. His eyes were too old, too tired. "He found me too," he said. "But I never left." The boy's name was Lorne. He had been there for years or minutes. Time was slippery in the cabin. He told her things the old man never did. About the doors that lead to nowhere. The stairs that descend into memory. The price of touching the wrong jaw. He reached for one marked Mother and winced. "He collects pain," Lorne said. "Not for power, for company." Elara asked, "Why don't you leave?" He looked down. "Because I forgot how." They sat in silence as the attic seemed to breathe. Then Lorne turned to her. "I'll make you choose, between remembering and becoming." "Becoming what?" she asked. Lorne didn't answer, but the jar beside her cracked. The next morning, Lorne was gone. No footprints. No whisper. Just a jar where he'd been. Elara didn't open it. She knew better. The old man sat at the table, carving something into the wood. "You made a friend," he said. "They don't last." Elara stayed quiet. "You've seen the attic," he continued. "You know now." She nodded. "I want to write my end." His smile returned. "Then write wisely." He handed her a bone pen. Its tip was red. She opened the book again, but the pages were blank. Elara pressed the pen to the page. It bled. And with it, so did the cabin walls. Reality shivered. The whispers screamed. And Elara began to write what no one should ever know. The words Elara wrote reshaped the world around her. Walls split open, revealing rooms she had never seen, each one echoing with pieces of her own memory. A hallway appeared behind the fireplace. She followed it, barefoot, bone pen in hand. At the end, a door of bone and breath, pulsing faintly like a heart. It opened for her. Inside, a mirror. Simple. Round. One. Framed in teeth. But the reflection wasn't hers. It showed her mother, younger, afraid, wrapped in blood-soaked cloth. Behind her, the old man, younger too. Familiar. The whisper came from behind the glass. You know him. Elara touched the mirror. The image changed. Her mother gave birth. Not one child. Two. One screamed. The other didn't. The silent one was carried into the woods. You weren't taken, the whisper said. You were left. Elara stumbled back, gasping. The mirror cracked. Her breath fogged the air. I was the other, she whispered. Behind her, the old man stood silently, as if he'd always been there. I never wanted you to remember, he said. But the forest did. She spun toward him. You left me. His face flickered with something like sorrow. She made me choose, one to keep, one to forget. Elara stepped forward, voice shaking. You're my father, he finished. In name, but not in heart. She screamed, this time loud, ragged, full of years. The cabin shook. Lights dimmed. And the book burned without flame. The forest howled, no longer whispering, but demanding. Truth once spoken, never sleeps again. The forest responded. Roots tore through the floorboards, grabbing at the walls, pulling the cabin apart. Jars shattered in the attic. Lorne's voice screamed through the cracks. He lied to all of us. Elara ran to the main room. The table split down the middle, the pages of the book flying loose. They circled her like vultures, whispering every truth she'd tried to forget. The bundle. The smile. The scream that came too early. The old man knelt, hands on his face. It was mercy, he sobbed. I only took what the world threw away. Elara shouted. You took what you wanted. She raised the bone pen, which now glowed white-hot, and pointed it at him. Then write your end, she said. Well, like you made me write mine. The pen burned in her grip, pulsing like a second heartbeat. The old man raised his eyes, word, hollow, tired. You won't understand, he whispered. I kept the pain so you wouldn't have to. She stepped closer. Then why do I still feel it? She plunged the pen into the book. The world convulsed. Light fractured. And suddenly, they were not in the cabin, but somewhere beneath it. A cavern made of bone and ash. Shelves of forgotten names. Time didn't move here. It looped. Around them stood every version of Elara. The crying child, the thief, the dreamer, the forgotten. And in the center, a cradle of roots cradling a single infant. Silent. Smiling. Her. The infant opened its eyes. Black. Bottomless. Elara backed away. The whispers were silent now. They waited. The old man knelt before the cradle, his face slack with awe. This is the peace I kept, he said. Your silence, your stillness, the part the world feared. Elara shook her head. That's not me. It was, he replied. Until you screamed. She stepped forward, tears blinding her. Then I'll scream again. She leaned over the cradle. I don't need you. The infant smiled, its mouth slowly unsewing itself, thread by thread. It reached for her. Elara turned away. The moment shattered like glass. Light exploded. The forest above roared. And the cradle collapsed into ash. Elara stood in the silence after the blast, ashes clinging to her skin like memory. The cavern was gone. She was back in the cabin, though it was no longer whole. Walls sagged. Floorboards bled. The jars were shattered. Time had run dry. The old man lay on the floor, gasping, body unraveling, threads pulling from his skin like puppet strings. It's ending, he rasped. Just like you wrote. Elara knelt beside him, not with pity, but clarity. You were never saving me, she said. You were trying to rewrite yourself through me. He reached for her. You were supposed to be better. Elara stood. I am, she said. Because I remember. She turned away as his form unraveled into dust. The forest outside had changed. It bent toward her now, branches curling downward in reverence or fear. Every step Elara took, the ground pulsed. She wasn't walking through it, she was rewriting it. The whispers no longer led her. They followed. Her feet left behind prints of light, but the air grew colder. From beyond the trees came something ancient. Not the old man. Not the forest. Something older than both. It took the form of a woman. Eyes made of stars. Hair like woven roots. "You burned what we preserved," the woman said. "He was our vessel." Elara raised the pen. "Then I'll become my own." The woman smiled. "You already have." And vanished. Elara returned to the village. But no one remembered her. Not her father, not the priest, not the children she once played with. The house she grew up in stood abandoned, half swallowed by ivy. Inside, her old bed still held the imprint of a child. A jar sat on the windowsill, empty. Elara touched it. The glass sang. Her memories flooded back, not just hers. All of them. She could see everyone's pain, secrets, regrets. She could rewrite them. But she didn't. "We are what we remember," she whispered. She turned from the house and walked into the square. The villagers watched her pass, unable to place her, yet moved to silence. They didn't need to remember. She did. That was enough. Night fell again, and Elara returned to the forest, not to escape, but to watch. She sat on the roots of a great old tree, the bone pen glowing faintly in her lap. The forest whispered still, but no longer to her. To others. She was no longer its vessel. She was its memory. A rustle in the trees. A child appeared, tear-streaked and trembling. Elara beckoned them forward. No words. Just warmth. She handed the pen to the child. "Write," she said. "Start with your name." The child clutched the pen like a torch. Light bloomed. The forest stirred. A new story had begun. Elara faded into the shadows, smiling. Not the preserved kind. The living kind. Deep beneath the forest, where time breathed slower, the last jar remained. Unbroken. Untouched. It held no smiles. No screams. Only silence. But that silence began to pulse. A faint hum. A breath. Inside the jar, a thread loosened. A smile began to form. Not stitched. Not stolen. Born. One. Somewhere far above, Elara paused mid-step. Her breath caught. The wind changed. The forest held its breath. She turned slowly toward the trees behind her. But there was nothing there. Or maybe something. Not yet. The story wasn't over. It never is. Not when something remembers. And in the dark, something remembered her. The forest changed after Elara. It grew quieter, not with fear, but reverence. Animals returned. The trees stopped whispering names. Where the cabin once stood, there was only moss. Roots covered everything. The jars were gone. The book had no more pages. And yet, people still vanished. Not from death, but from memory. Their pain eased into the earth, recycled. Elara wandered further into the wild, her face fading from recognition. Her name became wind. Stories of her turned to myth. But deep inside, Elara remembered. She had not escaped. She had chosen. The pen no longer glowed. It rested in her satchel, dormant. But it would not stay that way forever. Something else would find it. Elara came upon a village long abandoned, its walls sunken, windows broken. Children's drawings still clung to stone. She sat among them, tracing faded chalk with her finger. A faint memory returned, her own hand once holding color, once believing the world was safe. She pressed her palm to the wall. The drawing shimmered, briefly becoming real. A laughing child, her mother, a sky without teeth. And then it faded. Elara closed her eyes. "We were happy once," she whispered. before they asked us to forget. A wind passed through the ruins, and for a moment she swore she heard her own voice as a child, calling her name. She didn't follow. Not yet. That night, Elara dreamed of the old man, not as a monster, but as a boy. Alone. Crying. Holding a jar filled with sand. She watched him walk to the edge of a cliff and pour the sand into the wind. "They never wanted me," he whispered. Elara, unseen in the dream, reached for him. He looked over his shoulder. For once, he didn't smile. "I never knew how to stop remembering," he said. She woke with tears already drying on her cheeks. He wasn't forgiven, but he was understood. The forest hummed gently outside her shelter. It accepted. It moved on. Elara finally let herself cry, not for him, not for herself, for all the things that remembered too long. Elara stood at the lake where it all began. Its surface was still. No birds, now, empty, in the sea bay. No wind. She stepped into the shallows, water rising around her ankles. The whispers didn't follow. She looked into the reflection. For the first time, it was hers. No child. No monster. Just Elara. Older. Wiser. Whole. Lindy. The bundle had long vanished, but the weight remained. She took out the pen. Held it over the water. "If I write again," she asked, "will I lose myself?" The lake didn't answer, but it rippled, softly. Elara dropped the pen. It didn't sink. It floated, waiting. "Maybe someone else needs it more," she whispered. And she walked away, barefoot, leaving no footprints behind. Time passed without passing. Trees bloomed. Names faded. The forest became legend. Children whispered of a girl who spoke to silence, who turned screams into stories. But none had seen her. Not in years. Not truly. And yet, sometimes, on the edge of the wood, a voice would call out softly, just once. Elara. If answered, the forest would open a little. A clearing would appear. And in it, a stone seat beneath a flowering tree. No monsters. No jars. Just the sound of a pen scratching quietly in the dark. And a story, always a new story, waiting to be remembered. Or rewritten. Because the forest never forgets. It only waits. Far from the village, and deeper than memory, a child entered the forest. Small, curious, and unaware of what once lived there. They followed a sound, soft, rhythmic, like someone writing. The trees shifted around them, guiding without threat. The air was warm, the wind still. And there it was, the clearing. The tree. The stone bench. Empty. You want to. But the journal sat on the seat, its pages fluttering despite the windless air. The child approached, hand trembling. A name appeared across the first page before they touched it. Their name. No ink. No pressure. Just knowing. They looked around. No one. And yet, they whispered, "Thank you." The clearing exhaled. Flowers opened. The story had found its next voice. Back in the village, the wind carried strange melodies, fragments of songs no one remembered teaching. Children drew smiling trees and staircases that led underground. Elders muttered prayers they hadn't used in decades. Something was shifting. Not haunting. Returning. The priest lit a candle and found another already burning. He didn't light it. No one did. In a home on the edge of the woods, a woman opened her daughter's closet and found an old leather book, blank. But on its first page, a drawing of a girl. Smiling. Alive. What he won. Watching. The mother didn't recognize the face. But she cried anyway. And whispered, "Elara," though she had never heard the name before. In the deepest part of the forest, where no footsteps dared to go, something shifted. A jar, thought to be long forgotten, glowed softly beneath the earth. Not with darkness, with memory. Threads of golden light spun from its edges, weaving new paths into the forest's heart. Voices echoed, not screams, not whispers, but laughter. Honest. Human. The old stories slept, but new ones stirred. No one controlled them now. No one needed to. The forest had healed, but not erased. Pain wasn't buried. It was remembered, honored, transformed. And beneath all that life, the jar slowly emptied, not broken, just open. What had been held too tightly was finally free. Above ground, as the stars blinked awake, Elara sat beneath the oldest tree. Her face was older now, lined with time, softened by understanding. She no longer wandered. She waited. A figure approached, unsure, trembling, burdened. Elara smiled gently. "What did you lose?" she asked. The figure knelt, whispering a name. Elara opened a new page. Blank, dyke, inviting. "Then let's find it," she said. She didn't offer the pen. She waited until it floated on its own, glowing softly between them. The figure took it, hand steadying. The stars brightened. The tree's blossoms drifted like snow. A new story began. Elara's eyes closed. Not from weariness, but peace. In the dark, something moved. Slowly. Softly. A child's toy rolled across the cabin floor. Alone, untouched. It creaked to a stop. Silence. Then a whisper, faint and crystalline. "She screamed too early." A breath followed. Not drawn. Released. The cabin stood empty, yet watched. A single jar remained on the windowsill. Inside, nothing. Or everything. Then, from the forest, a low sound. Not words. A humming lullaby. One passed from voice to voice, from story to story. The wind picked up. Leaves turned. And then, silence. A blink. A breath. Cut to black.